Many feared we'd never see scenes like this again. Thousands dancing at one of the country's biggest venues. Printworks in London. COVID has meant that this has been the view on the dance floor. It is so strange being in a venue like this, where normally 5,000 people would be in here, dancing, having a great time. But now it is eerily quiet and such a weird atmosphere. The question for us, though, will people want to come back to venues like this? That fear and what the industry says is a lack of clear plan from government means that some venues have been put off from opening this week.
We're 500 days in, we're absolutely exhausted. We've gone from a team of several hundred to tens, with the government saying we're all about to open, now stop, now start, now stop. Every time that happens, we lose tens of millions of pounds.
Why is it you think they don't get it? Why is it that this industry keeps telling me they feel abandoned?
Yeah, I don't think we've been forgotten. I just don't think they care. That's the fundamental. I don't think it's about being forgotten. We've been lobbying hard. The science is really difficult about opening venues, but we've done test events months ago. We've got the data. We know how to do it. We're world-class health and safety and producers in this country. And to be honest, to totally ignore us is just not good enough.
The government says it's spent billions supporting the cultural sector through the pandemic, but venues and promoters have racked up huge debts. And many don't really believe the end of lockdown is the last we'll see of restrictions on clubs. So with delays, false starts and what many call a complete lack of clarity, the dance music community is frustrated. Back in April, I went to see Yousef, the DJ and promoter who put on those government-sanctioned test events in Liverpool that we just heard about.
I think it's been dreadful that the way they were treated, but I understood or found out why they were treated so badly. And it's because even though the dance music community is the 5th biggest economy in the UK, more than steel, more than the fisheries, who get support, no problem at all. It's because the government don't understand what we do. I mean, literally no idea. They think that a DJ is someone that kind of plays in the pub, you know, last orders of the bar and all that stuff. Totally dated view and everything.
The weekend gave people hope they could party again, and relatively safely. But it is worth bearing in mind that to attend you needed a negative COVID test, not the case on Monday. Although the government does want clubs to check people's vaccine status or if they're currently clear of COVID. However, it won't be a legal requirement, and many clubs say they won't do it. Promoters have, though, got used to lots of rules. Until now, the only events happening are socially distanced, like the Estate Festival in Bedfordshire.
It's for the best. It must be for the best, because I mean we don't see the statistics. It's these guys' jobs to see all that without getting too political and whatnot. So if it needs to be a few more weeks for us to finally be unchained, then it is what it is.
In the past 6 years, a quarter of clubs have closed, and that is on top of a half shutting the decade before that. UKHospitality, which gave us the data, is worried.
I think partly it's because during the COVID pandemic they've been sort of preserved in aspic. They're closed down. They're the one bit of the industry that has not been allowed to reopen at all since March, and they've got therefore the protections in place to make sure that they don't necessarily have to close. So while we saw stabilisation 2018, 2019, I think we're going to see an accelerated closure rate through this year.
The pressure she's talking about falls hardest on the smallest clubs that prop up local music scenes in towns and cities across the country. Places like the Welly.
Hi there, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Welcome to Rainy Hull.
It's terrible, isn't it?
It's been a feature of Hull for more than 100 years, but went out of business at the start of the pandemic, only to be bought by Mellor, who owns more than 30 venues across the north of England.
Venues like this are grassroots music venues, so if it had a carpet, it would be a sticky carpet. It's very much, that's part of the atmosphere.
He's got an institution on the local house music scene, Terry, to run the place.
I put my first night on here in 1991 with a DJ called Grooverad who was just cutting his teeth on the rave scene.
Hull is a city of a certain size, isn't it? It kind of can't sustain too many venues. But venues like this need to do lots of different jobs, really. They need to be a home for a band, they need to be a home for different musical genres.
This venue's hosted some of the best DJs in the world, some of the best bands in the country. It's always been, it's launched every musical genre, from rock music, punk music, acid house music in the late 80s to indie pop. This venue has been the birthplace of those musical revolutions in this city.
Arielle Free presents on Radio 1, and before COVID, she was DJing up and down the country.
And Matt and Molly have got your breakfast covered this morning. I'll be back again next week.
We've had people texting the show saying they've got the tickets, they're ready and waiting. I also know like a lot of people's mental health have been affected massively because the kind of therapeutic elements. So for me, that's why I love clubbing. I love walking into Printworks in London and knowing that for the next 5, 6, 7 hours, it's just about me dancing to some tunes with my mates. And that is, you know, when you've had a really hard week, like trying to earn those pennies, that's what we live for. We live for the weekend, we work for the weekend, don't we? So I feel like there's going to be a lot of mental health effects as well. I'm actually adapting to being in social environments as well. I think that's going to be quite hard for some people.
16 months ago, the dance floors of England's clubs emptied. And those that rely on them for their jobs and way of life feel abandoned. What those we've spoken to want now is more support and understanding from the government. But above all, not to close again. The unpredictability of a pandemic means that can never be guaranteed.
In a statement, the government says we are continuing to do everything we can to support them. Nightclubs still have access to our unprecedented £352 billion package of support.